Madam President, Vice President, Excellencies, the Uruguayan author, Eduardo Galeano, used to say that utopias were on the horizon. You moved 2 steps closer to them, they moved 2 steps further away. You walked another 10 steps to the horizon, and they kept running 10 steps further away. He argued that as much as you may walk, you would never reach them, leaving you asking what the point of the utopias is. The point, he answered, was that they made you walk. Distinguished delegates, I am honored to have the opportunity to speak before you today as the chair of the group of independent eminent experts on the implementation of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. The group, which I represent today, adamantly believes in the utopia that a world without racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerances is possible. While today such a utopia might seem far away, the Durban Declaration and Program of Action guides us how to get there by highlighting the necessary steps to be taken forward at all levels and by various stakeholders. While my membership in this group is recent, my work as a human rights activist is not. In Mexico, we have come to believe in the continued relevance of the DDPA, not as a result of blind faith, but rather as a result of the work we have done to translate its immense potential into reality. Today, I am here to present the group's report on its 9th and 10th session, which took place from 14 to 18 August 2023 and from 17 to 20 June 2024. During the 9th session, the group held 6 public thematic discussions, comprising current challenges, the integration of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance into the United Nations processes and events. The 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, migration, mobilization of political will for the full and effective implementation of the DDPA, and affirmative actions for advancing racial equality. In the conclusions and recommendations, the group reiterated the importance of the global outreach programs led by the United Nations on public information on and mobilization in support of the DDPA and its full and effective implementation, including countering disinformation about its content. It also affirmed that the teaching of history, in particular the role that the resistance and uprisings by enslaved Africans played in the abolition of the trade in enslaved Africans, is fundamental to the fight against contemporary forms of racism, especially systemic racism. The group urged member states and all stakeholders, including civil society representatives, to ensure that considerations relating to the eradication of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance be fully integrated into the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and other United Nations processes. It also encouraged increased coordination and cooperation between all international human rights mechanisms, working on combating racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. During the 10th session, the group held 2 public thematic discussions that reviewed the interlinkages between artificial intelligence and racism, and anti-racism in education and public discourse. In the conclusions and recommendations, the group called on states to consider proclaiming a second international decade for people of African descent, starting in 2025, and expressed its strong motivation to contribute to the drafting of the United Nations Declaration on the promotion, protection, and full respect of the human rights of people of African descent. The group emphasized that although artificial intelligence can contribute to combating racism, the digital divide is still a prominent issue that disproportionately affects racialized communities around the world. It expressed concern that generative artificial intelligence carries the potential to drastically alter labor markets, which could have a disproportionate impact on the employment of racialized groups. Therefore, the group urged states to prepare preliminary impact assessments and develop mitigation strategies. It also encouraged government sectors that use artificial intelligence products developed by private companies to request, at the very beginning of the development process, detailed information regarding consultations and the substantive contributions of representatives of racialized communities to the conceptualization, development, and testing of artificial intelligence products. With regard to education, the group expressed concerns about the increasing spread of the, quote, new racial science that aims to prove that racism, including institutional racism and racial discrimination, do not exist. In addition to revising the educational curricula to ensure that educational materials do not contain incorrect facts about the enslavement and colonialism, minimizing their harm and omitting analysis of interlinkages with today's structural racism. The group recommended that the states train and equally employ more teachers from racialized groups and increase funding for community education initiatives. Madam Vice President, Excellencies, in the last few years, advances, setbacks, as well as new challenges have arisen in the fight against racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. Movements that insist on reviving all racist narratives have come to interact simultaneously with digital technologies that accelerate outreach and also new social perspectives that challenge them. In Latin America, in most countries, the acknowledgement of the existence of racism has increased, and talking about it is no longer a taboo. But at the same time, the consequences of systemic racism are still affecting the biggest majority of racialized individuals. While it is true that much remains to be done to achieve our utopias, it is undeniable that steps have been taken. Yet, stronger leadership and political will from states and the international community are needed to translate our commitments in the Durban Declaration and Program of Action into concrete actions on the ground that change lives for the better. I thank you for your attention.